Are you Santa Claus? I heard you might be him. If you are him, here's my list.
Help the Marines make Christmas possible for less fortunate children. Donate a new toy to Toys for Tots.
Here's Santa Claus.
I'm Ed Zackery, Director of the Medina County Veterans Service Office. Welcome to Salute to Service, a show about Medina County and our veterans. What we hope to capture in this program are some of the many achievements, heroic deeds, and sacrifices of our past and present warriors from here in Medina County. We also hope to highlight the many accomplishments that they have continued to make as veterans right here in our community. Again, welcome to Salute to Service. Today we're at the Wadsworth Senior Center on location, and I got Mr. Joe Rodgers, who is the American Legion commander here in Wadsworth, and his first vice commander, Chuck Heller. How you guys doing?
Good.
Good. Glad to have you. Now you guys are both Vietnam veterans, right?
Right.
Okay. And both Army veterans?
Is there another branch of the service?
I'm not going to go down that road. I interviewed a couple Navy veterans today. They're great too. Chuck, tell me a little bit about your service and why you joined the Army.
I joined in June of 1959. I enlisted in the Army. I was a regular Army at that time. Did the usual thing, basic training at Fort Knox. Went to cryptographic specialist school at Fort Gordon, Georgia, which was a southeastern signal school back then. That and military police down there. And from there I was sent to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I was 101st Airborne up there for about 7 months. And I got orders for the Caribbean Command Headquarters in Canal Zone, Panama Canal Zone. So I stationed down there till the levy came down in '61 for volunteers for NAM. And a bunch of us raised our hands. We had time and stuff to qualify, so we did that.
Now, what years were you in the Canal Zone?
I was in the Canal Zone from '60 to '61. I went to
What was it like back then?
Loved it.
Nice place, huh?
Nice. Greatest duty ever was in the Army.
Wow.
A lot of senior NCOs retired down there.
Wow.
Guys of your rank, my rank.
Well, it's good weather and all that.
Oh, yeah.
I imagine, yeah. Easy living, probably
80,
fairly
90
cheap.
degrees all year long.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, what about you? What did you do in the Army besides go out and have a good time?
Well, I was a medic. I joined in 1961.
Mm-hmm.
Jobs, I figured, well, I might as well go into the service.
Right.
So I went into the service, joined the Army. All my uncles were Army. They were during the Second World War. You know, they were either in England or Africa.
Right.
So, you know, and I'm getting pushed into the Army. So I joined the Army and they sent me to Fort Sam Houston, Texas after basic training and became a medic. After that, I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, and they were going to transfer me to Greenland. This is just before Vietnam.
Right.
And then all of a sudden the Cuban crisis hit. As soon as the Cuban crisis hit, they sent me to Jacksonville, Florida, and I gave physicals for a recruiting main station down there, and I stayed there the rest of my tour.
Now, who are you giving physicals to?
A lot of Mexicans that crossed the border
Mm-hmm.
to go back down, Cubans.
Cubans, right?
Who got physicals to go back down and fight against Castro.
Okay, so there was a war going on.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. Now, I never got duty like Jacksonville, Florida, or Panama.
Yeah.
I was always never quite that nice. So you went to Vietnam then,
Yeah.
and what was that like?
I didn't see much.
Didn't see much?
No, I was, as I said, a cryptographic specialist, so there was, we weren't there on paper.
Right.
We were just there.
Well, you were there, what, 60, 61?
61, 62.
61, 62.
Yeah.
Now, you came back in 62 then, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was really before the war effort really started and America got into it.
People were getting killed,
Right.
yeah. The first guy in '61 that was killed in September, I think it was also a cryptographic specialist, but he was a field crypto man. I was inside all the time.
But the whole social thing with the Vietnam War hadn't really started yet. That was until later in the late 60s and early 70s. And so when did you get out of the military?
Well, I came home in '62, got discharged in '65 then, and then a friend of mine who was the Sergeant Major of the National Guard taught me into joining the National Guard. So I signed up in '73, and I finished out 20 years there.
Retired from the National Guard.
Right.
Now, how about you? When did you finish up the Army time there?
Actually, I got discharged from regular Army in '64, but I served 4 more years in the reserves, active reserves.
So when you know, I'm always interested. I was a little kid at that time, but a lot of history. When you came back and you saw what happened to our country at the tail end of the Vietnam War, and how we were reacting to our soldiers and Marines coming back, how did you guys feel as veterans?
It was terrible.
I went into a post. I'm not going to say what post, and they didn't want me in there. They says, "Get out of here, baby killer."
And you weren't even.
And I wasn't even over there.
You weren't even over there. But you, Chuck?
I had no problems when I came back. I originally joined American Legion here in Wadsworth back then, 43 years ago, and I've never had a problem going to any Legion post. I know friends of mine have.
Right.
Same thing, but there again, they were in later years.
It was isolated incidents.
Right.
I think certain areas and certain places like that. I always find that interesting.
Mine was in Akron.
Right. I tell you, my hat goes off to Vietnam vets, and as being an Iraq and Afghanistan veteran, when I came back, my soldiers were welcome to a hero's welcome, but the first person that greeted them was a Vietnam vet, and that never forget, never do it again.
Right.
Stands tall. So, what's your? I guess I'll ask Chuck first. What's your favorite memory of the military?
Favorite memory?
Wasn't your drill sergeant, was it?
No, well, back in my day, we didn't have drill sergeants. We had platoon sergeants.
Platoon sergeants.
The drill sergeants came in later on during Vietnam and wore the campaign hats.
Right.
We didn't have them. Probably my first jump.
So how many jumps do you got?
I just got to 5.
Just 5? I didn't realize we had a paratrooper with us. So
well, I won't repeat what you're supposed to say about airborne, but
if I yell "hit it," what are you going to do?
yeah.
Fort Benning, Georgia, 5
Campbell.
jumps.
Fort Campbell.
Fort Campbell. All right.
Fort Campbell was home of the 101st Airborne. Back then, there was only 2 airborne divisions, 101st and 82nd. Fort Campbell had their own jump school.
I didn't realize
It's
that.
all air assault now.
Air assault school.
Yeah, headquarters out in the Triangle. We used to have there used to be a cage out there. Had 2 bull-headed eagles in it.
When you came back from Vietnam, first thing you did when you got some leave, what'd you do?
I came back. I mustered out down at Fort Jackson. Caught a bus home. Nobody knew I was coming home. Nobody.
You just surprised them.
Yep.
Wow.
My dad told my mother he suspected because he got his last letter was returned to him. He said all my mail filtered through the canal zone. Anyhow, so.
How about you, Joe? What'd you do? What'd you do in your spare time when you were in the military?
We went out to the beach.
Went out to the beach.
Jacksonville Beach. My most memorable part of was when I was in medical training. We had to go down to Camp Bullis, Texas, and for survival training, and they wanted us to, be part of a unit in survival. Well, one of the guys there had appendicitis problem.
Well, you were out in the field.
When we were out in the field, and it looked real bad. We couldn't get an ambulance in there real quick, so we performed an appendectomy right there in the field in Camp Bullis in the United States.
Amazing.
In 1961, too.
Was there a doctor there or just some medics?
Just the medics.
Wow, that's amazing.
So that's we did that. The guy survived. In fact, he was from Cincinnati. I'll never forget his name, Roger Wright. He was a good guy.
So you guys come out of the military, you go back into civilian life, and here you are, American Legion members, commander, first vice, and I know you've both been involved with the districts and stuff for 20-some plus odd years, still giving to your country. What makes you do it?
I enjoyed it. If we can get something back for the veterans, and the American Legion being the largest veterans organization in the United States, we have a lot of pull in Washington, D.C.
Right.
A lot of the legislative stuff goes on down there that the American Legion is involved in. So as long as we can help the veterans, that's what we want to do.
And here in the community too. I mean,
Right, exactly.
You know, the posts aren't just about Washington.
Right.
They're about
My biggest thing was I didn't want people treated like the Vietnam. I mean, the guys coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan and from over there, I didn't want them treated that way.
Right.
That's why our post is always open to any veteran coming in there. No matter what war they were in, come in, we'll treat you good.
Treat you like family.
That's exactly it. And we do get involved with the community, very much so.
And I know you guys do a lot here in Wadsworth too. You're very involved in the community,
Exactly.
parades and everything else. So.
We even brought the Vietnam Wall here.
Any plans to bring them back?
No, that was 5 days out of my life.
I know that thing travels
I
around a lot.
I didn't sleep for 5 days.
It is a lot of work for
Yes.
people that sponsor the moving wall. It's a great thing to see.
It's a great thing. I got a lot of accolades from it.
Right.
In fact, I got the key to the city because I brought that here, but it was a lot on me. It took a lot out of me.
Last comments before we close up here. Chuck, what do you think the military's did for you throughout your life? What did that 6 or 7 years you spent, aside from your National Guard, how did it shape you as a man the rest of your
Well, I
life?
think it teaches young guys discipline, basically. You know, you learn. If you can't make it in the military, you can't make it on the outside, the way I look at it.
Joe?
I feel wholeheartedly what he said. I think I grew up. I actually grew up in the service.
No regrets?
No, I'd do it over again.
That's what everybody says.
In fact, I would probably stay in.
Well, I want to thank both of you for coming down here and sharing your stories today. Appreciate you.
Thank
It
you.
was our pleasure. Thank you.
It's me, Santa Claus, coming to you live from the North Pole. I'd like to remind you to leave out that milk and those cookies and to keep watching Brunswick area television. And I'll come to see you real soon.
Thanks to your generosity, Marines have delivered Christmas to children in need since 1947.
Today we're at the Wadsworth Senior Center. And I got with me Mr. Bob Smith and Mr. Jim Riley, correct?
Yes, sir.
Marine Corps and Air Force.
And Air
an
Force.
Army veteran, right?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Smith, joined the Marine Corps first and then the Air Force.
Yes.
What made you go into the Marines?
And I thought about that before I came here. But I had graduated in 1948 from high school, and I was kind of floating around during the whole summer. And then there come time for people to go back to work, and go back to school and stuff. And I thought, where am I going to go? And I picked the Marine Corps to do that.
Picked the Marine Corps. How many years did you spend in the Marine Corps then?
I spent 9 years with them.
9
There were
years.
6 of us that went down. I was the only one that passed.
So the other guys didn't get in anything, or?
All my, but no, they didn't. They had physical problems.
So 9 years in the Marine Corps, went in 48, spent some time in Korea then during the war, right?
Yeah, in 52 I spent a year, in 52 and 53.
And how did you feel when they told you you were going to go over to Korea?
Well, when you're a Marine, they tell you you're going to go, you just go.
You just go.
You know, you go aboard a troop ship and then head off wherever it takes you.
Any big battles over there involved in, or?
I was not personally involved in that because the good Lord was watching over me, and they assigned me to the 1st Marine Air Wing, and my job was to maintain wire communication from the radar site I was assigned to main base. I was lucky.
Lucky. Now you joined the Army.
Yes, sir.
Why?
Well, I graduated from high school in 1960, and there were no jobs, good jobs, I should say, to have at that point in time. That was during the Berlin crisis. Oh, you can get stocking shelves at a grocery store, pumping gas, stuff like this. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but you go down to Firestone Tire and Rubber, Goodyear, Goodrich, or any of these big companies, and as soon as they found out that you did not have your service obligation over with, this is back when they had the draft.
Right.
So as soon as they found out you didn't have your service obligation over with, they says, we're not hiring. Go get your service obligation, complete that, then come back and talk to us. Well, no jobs, what are you going to do?
Right.
So I joined the Army.
Went out and get your service obligation.
I was RA all the way.
What did you do in the Army?
Well, I was a military police officer for 3 years. And I followed that up with the 30 years at the Akron Police Department.
I was going to ask you if it carried over to the civilian sector, so it did, huh?
Yes, sir.
And where were you stationed when you were in the Army?
Well, I went to Fort Knox, Kentucky, a little agony and misery down there. But Fort Knox, Kentucky for basic, went down to Fort Gordon, Georgia for MP school. Right. And then I was stationed at Fort Benning, Georgia for a short period. I worked post MPs while I was there. And then I was sent over to Livorno, Italy. My lips are dry, sorry. But on the maps they said you're going to Leghorn. Well, nobody knew what Leghorn was. We kept looking around, then it was Livorno, just outside of Pisa. But there's a small garrison over there. It was primarily a way station. They have vehicles there in ready in case something should happen.
In case the Cold War came on or something.
In case it got hot, right. And they had ammunition bunkers there out in the boondocks. And there's a lot of ammunition went through there over towards Asia, even when I was there. That was before Vietnam really got hot.
So you were kind of right in the middle of the Cold War. You joined right after World War II.
Yes.
Went through Korea, and you came out of Korea as a Marine. And you're still a Marine.
Yeah, we're still
a Marine. But between that point, you joined the Air Force.
Yes.
And so you went that whole Air Force during the kind of the middle of the Cold War there too. What did you do in the Air Force?
I started out as an antenna specialist, and then I transferred over to radio maintenance. And I ended up doing air navigational aids, ILS, TACANs, TVORs, that kind of stuff.
Where were you stationed in the Air Force?
I started out at McGuire Air Force Base, then to Dhahran, Saudi Arabia for a year. And from there I went to Brooklyn Air Force Base in Mobile, Alabama. So it got me a little Dixie cup from there, my little youngest daughter. And from there I was assigned to Alaska and spent as long as time as I could up there. And when I left Alaska, I came down to Jefferson Barracks in St. Louis, Missouri, which was an old Civil War facility. And the Air National Guard had a place they met there. And it was my job to train the Air National Guard people, or see that they were trained to do what they were called upon to do.
You wound up retiring from the Air Force, then, I take.
That's when I retired, was from Air Force. So I had a 3-year tour there with the Air National Guard. It was a 3-man detachment. We worked very little.
Now, how many years between the Marine Corps and the Air Force?
Well, it was just about a month.
About a month. What made you got out of the Marine Corps? You just decided, let's go to the Air Force? Or?
Well, you know, I had a family by that time, and I didn't have much time to go screwing around looking for a job. And I knew the military service, and so I picked that. But the Marine Corps was not going to allow me to go. They were not going to allow me to stay in the States for 6 months while my wife was having her 3rd child. And he says, "Oh, you're going to go?" And I says, "No, I'm not." He says, "Yes, you are." And I says, "I'm quitting. My enlistment is up." So,
so you were done. So out of all your time you spent in the military, what would be your most memorable experience?
Well, as a matter of fact, it was surprise maneuvers when I was stationed over in Italy. They'll come roaring in about 2:30 and 3 o'clock in the morning, roust everybody out of bed for maneuvers. They're supposed to be top secret. Nobody knew anything about it until that point in time. And what they do, Livorno, Italy is it's about a third of the way down the peninsula.
Right.
And they load us into a Dusna house, and truck us up to the Yugoslavian border. At that time, Yugoslavia was communist under Tito, but these are supposed to be surprise maneuvers. Well, we get up there on the border, and there's the Yugoslavian Army, got their tanks all lined up just waiting on us. So somebody let the cat out of the bag somewhere along the line.
It's a long drive, too, in the back of Medusa.
That's a long drive. Well, boom, they're not exactly made for riding.
Did you enjoy Italy? What did you do on leave over there? You got some weekend passes or something? What did you do?
Oh, I traveled with their train system over there. Mm-hmm. It's not like here in the States, you want to go someplace that's usually rather far.
Right.
But over there they have a fantastic train system. It doesn't cost that much to travel. I took advantage of that. I went up in the weekends up into Germany and down into Rome and Florence. Well, Florence wasn't that far away, but I traveled around. And plus, the Army had a swimming club, so to speak, right there on the Mid. And there's just a private beach, and it was nice to go out there and relax, and have fun,
do some swimming. Yeah,
yep.
Not a bad place to be stationed.
No, it really wasn't.
Mr. Smith, obviously Marine Corps, Air Force, you probably got some really good memories out of, that's kind of a, going from one extreme to the next.
Yeah,
Most memorable experience.
Well, it's hard to say about one particular instance. One of the things that I experienced when I was in Alaska was the earthquake they had up there in '64. And it lasted 5 minutes. And it was a 9.4 shaker. So that was very, just stuck in your mind, all the experiences that happened with that. The smell of gas in the air, and no water, and no way to take care of the little baby I just got from the hospital. So it was a tough time, but it was a dangerous time too.
Right.
And when I was in Saudi Arabia, I found out why that the Arabs wore these coverings across their head, because when they ever get up into a windstorm, the sun the sand will just come in and just eat your skin right off the back of your head. Right. And if you wear shorts, it'll take the skin off the back of your legs. So I see all these movies about the guys in North African campaign running around in shorts, and I think, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
One of the unusual things that I did there was that I learned to water ski in Saudi Arabia.
In Saudi Arabia?
In Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
I did that. So I was I got to go on an R&R to Jerusalem, and I spent a week over there, and that was really special. And I remember that till this day, all the details. So.
It's amazing. A lot of people don't realize we were over there 50 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, we're still there today doing different
We went over there and we installed a communication system for them. And we got it all done and got it all up and working. When they kicked us out, all that equipment stayed.
You came back to the States. You spent, a good 20 years in the military. You came back, went back to work. How do you think your military experiences shaped you as a person to carry on in a civilian life, or carry on with your families back here in the community?
I'll tell you, as far as I'm concerned, military life is one of the best things that could happen to a person nowadays. Well, even back when we were in also. But it teaches discipline and respect. So many, not all of them, there's so many that the kids nowadays, they don't know how to say please, thank you, yes sir, no sir. But discipline is one of the biggest things. It teaches you to stand on your own 2 feet. And that's a big part of life. You have to deal with things as they come along. You can't always run to mother and father like they're wanting to do nowadays.
Right.
That's why we're becoming a nanny state.
What about you, Mr. Smith?
Well, since most of my experience in the military service was in communications, I had a big background of communication experience. And so I retired from the military service in 1970. That's 42 years ago. Went to work for Motorola as a FTR, field tech rep.
Right.
And it wasn't long before I was a manager of that department. And so the background that I received in the military, it just made me slide right into that job easy.
I think the business savviness, you think some of that, the discipline in the military and everything, does that help out in the business world?
Oh, well, certainly it does. You have to deal with a lot of people. That's one thing that the military taught you how to do, is how to deal with people in all kinds of circumstances. And you learn that, and when you go into the business world, you still have those same things happening to you. And you still have to be able to cope with those and manage the situation so it doesn't bury you.
And a lot of employers want to hire veterans because we know that they know how to think on their feet, they know how to make decisions, and they know how to deal with different types of situations. And that hasn't changed. I mean, it's same today, same 50 years ago. The military gives you that. I think that's important. Any last comments? You belong to any veterans organizations, or have you joined any when you got out or while you were in?
Well, I'm a lifetime member of the VFW.
VFW?
Well, I don't do too much with that. Most of my time now is spent with the church.
The church?
And the people associated with that.
How about you?
Well, I'm a dues-paying member of the American Legion, and now that I'm retired, though, I want to get more involved with the Legion. It's,
right.
Along with the VFW, the Legion, they do great things for our community. But the two of them here in town, they can in cahoots and do all kinds of things together.
Right.
They're not fighting each other like they are in some communities.
No, they're great. They work very well together here in
Yeah.
Wadsworth, and you got two great posts down there too. Last comments, Mr. Smith. I'll give you the first one.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I'm glad to have this opportunity to be here today with you and tell the people a little bit about my experiences, which were nothing exceptional. And I was no great big battles and saved all these people, and I never did any of that stuff. I just did my job, what I was told to do, and I'm thankful to be able to do that for our country.
Mr. Rod?
Well, I put my 3 years active duty service in, plus 3 years reserve, and I'm glad I did. And I was telling you a little bit earlier, I had two brothers that also served. My one brother was a submariner at the end of World War II. My other brother was in the Marine Corps at the end of World War II. Well, they got out after the war and all this, and then the Korean War started, or should we say police action, if we want to get politically correct. Right. But both of them were called back in, and one brother went back into submarines. My other brother went into naval aviation. Now, he flew Corsairs off the USS Antietam. Mm-hmm. But he was shot down over Wonsan Harbor in North Korea and killed in action. He's never been recovered yet. But I look up to both of them. I miss them both. Never have had closure on my one brother. But do it over again, I'm glad I did. I don't know whether I'd really do it over again nowadays or not. But I'm glad I did.
No regrets, though.
No regrets, absolutely none, other than agony and misery.
I want to thank you both for coming today and sharing your stories. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
This program was brought to you by the same men and women that also brought you your freedoms. Thank you for watching Salute to Service.